Hello, hello. Welcome to The Verdict, a podcast by the Carlson Law Firm. In this limited run series, we'll be going all about car accidents, car crashes, personal injuries with them, and the surrounding topics. And in this episode, we're going all about the process, what's the process, what to do right after a car crash. And during this limited run series of podcast episodes, I'll be joined by a couple of attorneys of the Carlson Law Firm from one of our locations. And in this episode, I'm joined by Trey Pendergraft and Ryan Luna. So if y'all want to go ahead and introduce yourselves, Ryan?
Yeah, thanks, Jeffrey. My name's Ryan Luna. I'm an attorney in Waco with the Carlson Law Firm. I've been practicing law for going on 5 years and enjoy helping injured people and serving folks in my community and around the state and around the country even. So thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on.
Hey, good morning. I'm Trey Pendergraft, one of the associates in the Temple, Texas office. Kind of like Ryan, I've been practicing about 5 years. Man, it's just something else being able to see a client's face at the end of a case and know that you really help them make a difference and help guide them through one of the most difficult times in their life. It just makes it worth it at the end of the day. So thanks for having me here.
Thank you also for being on. Yeah, it's wonderful being able to help clients and whatever locations you're at and helping them throughout the process.
Absolutely.
So with this episode, like I said, it's going over what's the process, what to do right after a car crash. And I wanted to start off the limited run series with this episode in particular because there's a lot of young and inexperienced drivers out there, especially in Texas. And also there's a lot of people who may have been driving for a while but have never been in a car crash. And I wanted them to have a resource on what the process is like, what kind of roadblocks there might be, and for them to, be successful in a way of like having that resource and having the help they need right after a car crash. So we're gonna start out, a hypothetical situation, I'm driving on the road, and then, I stop at the stop sign at a 4-way, and then I keep going, and then all of a sudden someone misses the stop sign, hits me right there. And at that moment, at that crash, what is the first step? What's the first step? What's the first thing I should do?
Well, to me, the first thing you should do is assess your physical condition. Like, where am I? What's going on? Can I move? If you can't move, if your neck's hurting, your back's hurting, something is keeping you from moving safely, you probably shouldn't move too much. Check and see if your vehicle's on fire, if there's any smoke coming out of the hood. If your airbag's deployed, you're going to have a little bit of, it'll look like smoke inside the cabin. It's from I think it's jet fuel that they use to propel those airbags. So if it's just that, you should be okay. You can get out of the vehicle safely, go ahead and do that. If you can if you can get out, that's fine. But you should absolutely call the police. Call 911, let them know what happened, and get some help out to you as soon as possible.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is if you're driving a late model car with some sort of OnStar or similar type of technology, don't hesitate to touch that button or respond to those folks that come on in your car and tell them, if you're hurting, don't hesitate to tell them that you need medical attention immediately and fire an ambulance if need be. Get them out there. Don't hesitate to get those people involved, and taking care of yourself is first and foremost.
Yeah, because overall safety is a big priority. We want everyone to be safe, whether like how minor or major the car crash is. And so it's big. And after you're safely out the vehicle, you're safe from whatever the car crash may be, what would be the next thing I would do after that?
Well, if you haven't called 911 or the police, you definitely do that. If you've already done so, told them what's going on, and they've sent some help out, you want to check on anybody who's with you. Depending on who's with you, that may be a top priority. If I'm traveling with my daughter in the car or with my wife, I'm probably going to check on them first thing before I call the police, and then I'll call 911. Check on the people who are with you. And then if the other driver seems like somebody who you could approach safely, they're not being confrontational or putting you in some sort of jeopardy, you may make contact with them and just say, hey, are you okay? What happened? I called the police.
Yeah, I think too. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you're good. Go ahead, Ryan.
I think too, if like you said, if you're in the car with your loved ones, making sure they're okay. If you're not in the car with your loved ones, call them, let them know what just happened. Not only do they want to know because they love you, but it can be important in a future case. And I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but it could be important if you do end up hiring a lawyer in a future proceeding to have that loved one be able to testify and say what it is that they heard from you that day and what their impression of your condition was like at the time. So call your loved one, after you called the police, call your loved ones and tell them what happened. And I think whatever Trey said too is accurate.
And if you're in a position where you can safely do this, you're not in the middle of a busy intersection or on a highway with high speeds, take some photos. Take some photos and a video of your vehicle, of the other vehicle. Take some photographs of where your car is positioned on the roadway. Look for any sort of landmarks or, in our hypothetical situation, where are the stop signs? Where in the intersection was your vehicle positioned when you were hit? And what we can do with that information is if you've got a photograph of your car right after a crash, and it's showing your vehicle is almost all the way through the intersection, and somebody blows through a stop sign and T-bones you, well, what we can do is we can use that information to show that, look, my client had stopped, had proceeded through the intersection, and the only possible way this collision could have occurred is if that other person ran the stop sign and hit the tail end of their car. So photographs are a great piece of evidence that everyone can gather. Pretty much everybody has a cell phone that can take pictures. Pull out your cell phone and take some photographs. If you can do it, take a video. When I go out and I take photographs of vehicles, I try and also do a video, a 360 of a whole car, because if you can get a solid piece of evidence about the state of your vehicle right after a crash, that's phenomenal evidence. Number one, that can help show that, look, the severity of the crash. I was hit so hard, look at all this damage to my car. Cars are made of steel. Bodies are made of flesh and blood. We're not designed to withstand those impacts. So if you can get the photograph showing the damage, that's great. Even if it's not a lot of damage, we still want to have it. We can show that, look, the rest of this car was nearly pristine. And here on the back of this on the back of this vehicle is where the property damage was. So, that's further evidence that we can use to help prosecute your case and tell the insurance companies or even the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what happened, and then show them and prove it to them what happened. So definitely take some photographs. If you can talk to I'm sorry, go ahead, Jeff. What do we got?
Okay, yeah, because I was wondering, someone asked you, Ryan, but before, because we'll I know we're going to cover a little bit about insurance, but this series is going to have an episode dedicated to all about the different types of auto insurance and
Sure.
like what you should pick and how you should deal with that. But Ryan, I want to ask you, because Trey had mentioned, taking pictures to showing the insurance. Why is that important, and why should I take pictures, or why would it be not smart not to take pictures?
The only reason I can think of is for not taking pictures is if you're too hurt, if you're too injured, if you're incapacitated, or you're dizzy, or you're just not with it. Otherwise, I think if you're able, taking pictures is vitally important because it shows people have different ways of learning. Sometimes we hear things and we learn it. Sometimes we read things and we learn it. A lot of people, though, see things and learn it. So a lot of people are visual learners. And in a way to effectively present your claim to an insurance company is by showing them, not just telling them. Attorneys do a great job of writing and speaking, but at some point, the old adage of a picture speaks 1,000 words. At some point, showing them how the injury or how the incident occurred is more powerful than anything else. And if you have a case where your car has been destroyed, that is going to be powerful evidence. Now, the opposite sometimes presents challenges. Sometimes presents challenges where you have a case where a lot of the damage is underneath the vehicle and you don't see a lot of physical property damage outside the vehicle. And that presents challenges, which is another important reason to hire an attorney because, and again, I don't want to get too far ahead of you, Jeff, but Sometimes insurance companies will say, well, we don't see much damage to the vehicle, so we're not going to pay your claim, or we're going to offer you pennies on the dollar to resolve it. When the fact is, had they seen maybe all of the damage, for example, you've got a pickup truck and the person that hit you is in a car. Well, there's a lot of factors that go into that, but if that car runs up underneath your truck, there's not going to be a lot of damage to the outside exterior of the vehicle to see and to look at and to put your eyeballs on. So having the photos underneath to show, well, yeah, look at the exhaust, how dented it was. Look at the gas tank, it was all shoved in. Look at the frame, it was bent. I mean, that's going to be powerful evidence.
Okay.
Another thing, hold on, before we move on, I just want to make sure, I forgot to mention this. When you're taking pictures, look for skid marks too. Skid marks, depending on the type of roadway and how busy it is, they don't typically last for too long, especially if you're in a place where it's raining a lot. Those are going to wash away. So if you're looking out there, and in our hypothetical, were there any skid marks at that intersection where that other driver ran the stop sign? No skid marks means nobody tried to brake, right? But if you see some skid marks, well, then maybe he did try and brake. Same thing if you get rear-ended. Look at the back of your car and look at the roadway behind your car. If there's any space between your vehicle and the vehicle behind you, are there any skid marks? Remember, no skid marks means nobody tried to stop. So take a look for that and see. Just look for anything that might help prove your story and what you're telling the jury. The more evidence we have, the more a jury is likely to believe your story. And at the end of the day, that's who all this is tailored for. We have to let our peers and everybody else here, and I'm in Bell County, so everybody in Bell County, I want to show them everything that happened and tell them why and show them why you can believe me.
Yeah, because that's interesting because we hear about taking pictures of vehicles because of the damage they might take during a car collision, but I've never heard of taking pictures of skid marks or the road and what that could bring to the table when dealing with insurance companies and evidence and things of that nature. And one other thing that I thought was interesting that Ryan had mentioned is that if you're injured, you can't really take the pictures of the moment of the car collision. What would be a situation, how would that impact later on if I couldn't take pictures because I was injured?
Sure. In most cases, it's not going to be the end of the world, especially if you call the police and the police respond. A lot of times they've got body cams or dash cams where when they show up to the scene, they're going to be recording. And if we can get our hands on that, which a lot of times we can take, stills from the video evidence, or we can have actual video from the scene. Another thing we can do is we can actually go and figure out where your vehicle's at afterwards. On a crash report, or if the police come out and your vehicle's towed from the scene, they're going to put on that report who towed it and where they took your vehicle. And if you come and get with an attorney, like with us, for example, we can have you sign a little form that gives us permission to go out onto the tow yard. And we can actually go get photographs of your vehicle later. And then what we can do is we can analyze those photographs and the location of your damage, and then we can go out to the scene of the crash ourselves, hopefully as soon after it happened as possible, and look for this evidence ourselves. And a lot of people, when you get caught up in the moment, you're in a car crash, especially if you've never been in this situation before, adrenaline is going to be bumping, body's going to be hurt, brain is going to be in hyperdrive. What do? I have no idea what's going on. A lot of people's first action, when I was in my first car crash, I called my mom. Mom, what do I do? What happened? Fortunately, I had some other folks there who helped guide me through the scene, but it's not the end of the world. If you can do it, absolutely do it. But if you're too injured, don't fret. We'll figure something out for you. But that's the importance of calling an attorney and getting an attorney quickly so that we can get out there and we can preserve and gather that evidence before it disappears. Because remember, the skid marks aren't going to be there forever. Somebody drives through a ditch or, through grass or runs over a fence post or something, that's going to get repaired. It's going to grow back. Somebody's going to mow it. So the sooner you can get this information to us, the sooner we can grab it and we can preserve it for you.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, I think that's so critically important. I mean, I've had people that call me and they're medical doctors or they're engineers, and they say, "Oh, well, I can handle this. This isn't a big deal. It's just a car wreck." And I tell them, "Look, I understand you think that, but there are so many issues at play and so many factors involved that it doesn't. I know for our firm, we don't charge you. We don't take any money from the client unless we win. That's the only way we get paid. So our interests are aligned. We work on what's called a contingency fee. So it doesn't cost you anything to hire an attorney. And so I tell them, it doesn't hurt. Hire us. We can help you in ways that you are not thinking about right now. If this is your 10th car wreck, you know, maybe you've got some experience. Maybe you don't want to hire us, and maybe we don't want to hire you. But if this is your first car wreck, there's so many things that you just don't, that the average person just doesn't think about on a daily basis, that people like Trey and I, we think about all the time.
Remember, this is what we do for a living. You know, like we went to additional schooling after high school, after college. We went to additional schooling, and then we have dedicated years of our lives to figuring out the best way of doing this. And when you're caught up in the moment, and like Ryan said, you're just not going to know. Maybe you've been through the process 10 times and you know the nuances, but there's just a lot here. And you've got to remember it. And this is, you know, a tangent probably for your podcast, but the other person's insurance company does not have your best interests in mind. Okay. Their job is not to help you. They're mainly concerned about money. And it's unfortunate, but that's the reality of the situation. So if you can get somebody on your side who knows the system as well, somebody who's going to fight for you, and somebody who knows the little nuances and what's important and what's not, that's going to help you, you know, have a better chance of success.
Yeah, and because what I also wanted to dive in was because y'all mentioned insurance companies and hiring the attorney, and I want to know, do I try to hire an attorney first? Do I go to an insurance company first? Because someone who might be inexperienced in dealing with car crashes and stuff, they might not know what to do in terms of hiring an attorney or going to an insurance company first.
Sure. I mean, honestly, the first thing you should do is, if you're hurt, you should go get some medical care. Absolutely. So, you know, your first call should be to 911, not an attorney, if you're hurt. But as far as do I call insurance or do I call an attorney first, it's best to call us first. The reason why is an insurance company is going to be asking you for a whole lot of information, a whole lot of private information. And they're going to use that to gather any and all evidence they can against you. Whether you think it's important or not, they're going to do it. If you call an attorney, we know what they're going to need, and we know when they need it, and we know what they're going to use it for. So we are better at controlling the flow of information and making sure that they don't get every single minute, minuscule, unimportant detail of your life that they don't need. And what they're doing is they're looking for dirt. They're trying to dig up dirt about what can we do to deny this claim or not pay full value. Ryan said pennies on the dollar. That's a very accurate assessment of what they do. So your best bet is to call an attorney first. Call us and let us know. Remember, we're bound by confidentiality. Like Ryan said, number one, you're not going to pay us up front. The contingency works. You come in, if it's a case we can help you with, you sign a contract, we start working right away. There's no money out of your pocket. There's no retainer fee. There's no hourly rates, nothing. We eat all the expenses. We handle working on your case. If at the end of the day, we're able to get a recovery for you, we're just entitled to a small percentage of it. If for some reason we don't recover, you don't owe us money. I mean, you really have nothing to lose by calling an expert, somebody who's dedicated their life to pursuing this and to helping people. Call us first.
Yeah, and I would say, just in addition to that, you know, Trey mentioned, you know, call 911 before you call an attorney. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I would also say, go see the doctor before you go see an attorney. Okay, so you know, this isn't a deal where we're encouraging folks to just come to the attorney's office right after they get in a car wreck. We don't want that. We want you to go get, and it's not because, you know, of any other reason other than we just want you, if you're in a wreck, we want you to get better. That's what's most important. I have people calling me, and clients call me and say, well, what do I need to do for the case? Do I need to go to that? I said, that doesn't matter. You focus on doing what you need to do to get back to 100%, if at all possible. We can't undo the wreck. We can't make it go away. We can't make a magic wand. The only thing we can do is do the best we can with the situation we find ourselves in. And for the client who is injured, that means getting the medical treatment that they need as much as they can, as much as they need that the doctors are telling them they need, and just following that advice and going to all those doctor's appointments and making all their appointments and doing everything that the doctor orders, because you get one shot at this.
Yeah.
You know, and sorry to kind of segue that, it's important that you go as soon as possible. If you're injured, you want to go seek medical treatment immediately. Number one, for your own benefit, because we're not healers, we're lawyers, right? But number two, that's important for your case because it demonstrates that your injuries were caused not by something that was already there. Insurance companies, they call it, or defense attorneys, they call it pre-existing injuries. Basically saying you had whatever these problems are before the crash occurred. Well, let's say that you're a healthy young 20-something-year-old or even in your 30s for your first crash, and you get in a car crash and all of a sudden, my neck is killing me. never had any neck problems before, never played big contact sports, like no problem. You go to the hospital, on the way there, you tell the EMS workers, look, man, my neck is killing me. I've never had problems before. Great. They're going to document that. You get to the hospital is going to take your history and physical. The doctor's going to talk to you. You tell the doctors, look, I've never had these health problems before. All of a sudden, after the car wreck, my neck's killing me. My back is starting to get sore. They're going to document all that too. And then that evidence is preserved. We've got it right there. They may have you do some MRIs or some x-rays at the hospital, most likely an x-ray. That'll have that too. Those are great because it's a snapshot of the inside of your body and your current medical condition right then and there. So if you can go in and get immediate medical care, that's great. The longer you wait to seek medical care after a car wreck, the harder it's going to be to prove that your injuries and your treatment is related to the crash. And that's one of the biggest issues that insurance companies have is, well, if your client was so injured, why didn't they go get medical care? I mean, we understand why. The cost. It costs a lot of money, and it can. But what you've got to remember is number one, you may have your own insurance, your own vehicle insurance, uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage, things like that, who can come in and help pay for some of those bills if the other person doesn't. But I mean, everybody's required to have a minimum policy in Texas. Now, it doesn't always happen, which is why you can take the additional steps to protect yourself. But if you come in and hire an attorney, you don't have to sweat so much about the cost because we're here fighting for you. Yeah, they are expensive, but I mean, how much is your health really worth? It's worth a lot more. And like Ryan said, you really only get one shot at this. So the longer you wait, the harder it is to prove that your injuries were caused by the car crash or whatever hurt you.
Yeah, because that was a good segue into the question I had, which you had covered some of it, which was like, how long should I wait? Should I go, see a doctor right after the car collision, the car crash, or, what's the negative side of waiting a couple months or waiting like a longer period of time? And then also I wanted to throw in there, should I see someone if it's something I feel like I can shake off the next day, or I feel like, oh, there might not be any pain right now, so I don't really have to worry about it. Ryan, start with you.
Well, I think it depends on the circumstances. If you're transported at the scene by an EMS services, an emergency medical services ambulance, then you'll go straight to the emergency room and they'll triage you at the emergency room. If you're not transported, if you can either drive your vehicle or you have a family member come pick you up at the scene or a loved one pick you up, I think the first thing you ought to do is, if you don't go to the ER yourself, go to an urgent care facility, or go to your family doctor as soon as possible. Some people say, well, I just went home and laid down and I tried to get better, and I understand that. But I think the first thing you need to do is, if you don't have a primary care physician, you don't have a routine or a established primary care physician, your family doctor is what a lot of people call them, go to an urgent care facility. Go to an urgent care facility, tell them what happened, and just listen to what they say. And that's step number one. That's as soon as you've handled your business at the scene, what we've just got done talking about, then step number one is to go get that medical care.
Another thing you got to remember is a lot of these injuries are going to have a delayed onset. It's going to take you a little bit of time to feel some pain. And like we talked about, you just got in a car crash, your brain is going to be racing a million miles an hour, and your adrenaline's going to be pumping. You're not going to be aware of everything that's hurting. Another part is sometimes it'll take, 12, 24, 36, 48 hours for some of these symptoms to really start developing and come to fruition. You may not realize that you hurt your back in a car crash until a day or two later. I mean, in a situation like that, you can't really complain about it because you can't feel it yet. But as soon as you feel the pain, go get some help. Your lawyers can't treat you medically. I mean, maybe some of them can if they have the certain credentials or qualifications, but the vast majority of us aren't healers. As soon as it starts hurting, go. Remember, the longer you wait, the harder it is to prove that it's tied to the car crash. The longer you wait, the more evidence you give to the other side, the insurance or the guy who hit you or the girl who hit you, that they didn't cause this damage to you. And the insurance companies are going to leap on every opportunity they can. So get out there and go get some medical care. Yeah. Go try to get better. Do what your doctors tell you.
Yeah. And so after you get the medical care, after, you contact the attorney, and this is the part I want to jump on, is when I'm contacting an attorney, what are some red flags I should look out for when, dealing with, there might be attorneys trying to contact me because they see a car accident or I go to them. What are some red flags there?
Number one, if an attorney calls you. If an attorney calls you and says, hey, do you want representation for what just happened? That's a red flag. We're not supposed to do that. It's against the rules. Look for that. Number two, if somebody tells you, I know exactly how much money I can get you, and I know exactly how long it's going to take me to get you this money, that's the biggest red flag that we've got. Every single case is different. It doesn't matter. You can have the same fact for 10 cases, but you will never have the exact same injuries, the exact same insurance adjusters or companies, the exact same attorneys on the other side. No case is exactly the same. So somebody tells you, number one, if an attorney calls you, red flag. Number two, if they tell you, look, man, I'm going to get you $2,000 for what just happened to you. Trust me, red flag. Number three, man, I'll get you paid in 3 months. Red flag. That means they're going to cut corners. They're not going to get you the full value, and they don't care about you. They don't care about you getting better. All they care about is making a quick buck off of what happened to you. Those are some of the biggest red flags for me. What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I don't know how much more I can add to that. I think before you hire an attorney, you've definitely got to do some research. Don't just go hire the attorney the first one, that you see, in the phone book or something. I think you really need to look in to see what kind of firm it is, what kind of cases they take, what kind of attorneys they have, what their practice areas are. For example, I know in Waco, our partner here in our Waco office is board certified. That's a big thing. You need to look and see if the attorney that you're hiring is a board certified attorney. Board certification is a higher level of accreditation or qualifications that attorneys have to go through that's not available to just anyone, not available to just any attorney. There's extra testing and accreditation and experience that you have to get board certified. And I think another thing is you want to look at is to see, does the firm that you're going to hire try cases? Do they actually try cases to a jury? Insurance companies respond to that. And if you don't have that, you can call it a threat, I guess, if you want to call it that. But if you don't have that on your team, if you don't have that type of assistance on your team, it doesn't incentivize the insurance company to do the right thing. Because at the end of the day, if the insurance company knows that the law firm that you hired doesn't try cases, then what incentive do they have to try to pay you fair value? If they're not going to have to defend themselves all the way to a jury trial, then they'll just lowball you, they'll offer you pennies on the dollar, they'll jack you around. And you want an attorney that knows what they're doing, that's willing to take your case all the way to a jury trial if need be. Not every case needs to go to a jury trial. But if you've got an insurance company who's not wanting to play fair and not wanting to offer you fair value for your injuries, which can be lifelong sometimes, and like I said before, you get one shot at this. There's no coming back to it. There's no monthly payouts that you're going to get for the rest of your life in most cases. There's no monthly payouts that you're going to get for the rest of your life for this wreck. So you get one shot, you get one settlement. If it's a settlement, you get one jury verdict if it's a jury verdict. And so you just want to make sure that when you're researching, your lawyers that you're going to hire, that you don't want to give it short shrift. You want to really research it and figure out who the best person is in your area. And you want someone, if at all possible, local. You want to have someone that you can call and know that they're going to return your call. I know at our firm, we return calls same day. So if we miss you, we're going to call you back as soon as possible. And so you want to make sure that the people that you're teaming up with to help you are people that care about you, people that take an interest in you, people that have your best interest at heart, and people that are genuinely there to try to help you.
Yeah, because it's nice to hear about having an experienced attorney can help. Because as someone who I've never been in a car accident myself, I always hear misconceptions about oh, I'm in a car accident, attorney's gonna help me and I'm gonna get all this money and stuff. But it's nice to hear that everything is different. Get someone experienced, get someone local that could really help me out throughout the process. And the other thing I wanted to touch on was, what are some of the expectations, or what should I know after I hire an attorney? What is that process like afterwards?
So let me just touch on one thing you said too, because we get a lot of times people will call us and say, well, I talked to my friend, or I talked to my cousin, or I talked to my uncle, and they said that this case should be worth X, okay? Or I saw on TV that this lawyer got X, okay? I would just advise people to take that at, for what it's worth. I'm not saying that people are lying to them or what have you, but just know that every case is different, like Trey said. And just because you saw on TV that some guy got, $50 million for his car wreck doesn't mean that your car wreck is worth $50 million. We had a case where a lady was hurt at a Walmart, and she came to us. We helped her. We were able to resolve her case. And during that course of that case, there was a news article that came out somewhere along the East Coast where some other person got hurt at a Walmart and got a huge verdict. And the lady that we were representing said, "Hey, I saw this news article about this person who got all this money from Walmart in their case, and why isn't my case worth that?" So I had to. There's some education that we have to do with folks to say, listen, every case is different. The person that got that big verdict and along the East Coast had severe life-threatening injuries, and there was a bunch of other factors involved there, and there was a jury trial and blah 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 blah. So I just want to say, don't necessarily buy into all of the things that your friend tells you or that your uncle tells you or whoever, with that billboard that you see that says $50 million, so every case is different. Every injured person is different. Everybody's different. So now to answer your question about what do you expect after you hire an attorney, I can't speak for all firms. I can speak for our firm, the Carlson Law Firm. And I can tell you that we are going to handle your case with the utmost care. We are going to treat you with the utmost respect. We are going to return calls if we miss them. We are going to answer calls if you call us. We are going to walk you through and be on your team each step of the way. When you hire the Carlson Law Firm, there's not going to have to be a bunch of worry that you're going to have to carry around, because we're going to handle your case. We're going to take it on. We're going to put that burden on our shoulders, and we're going to carry it for you. And as I mentioned earlier, the thing that we want you to do as the injured party, as the victim of someone else's negligence, is to work on getting yourself back to 100% from a physical, injury standpoint. You get one shot at this. I know I've said that a bunch of times, but you get one shot at getting yourself back to 100% or as close as possible. But from this legal case standpoint, we are going to take that burden on happily, but we're going to take that burden on and carry that for you so that you can focus on what's most important to you in your life, which is your health. And we're going to focus on the other part of it, which is the legal case. And there's not going to have to be a bunch of wondering what your attorney's doing. We're going to follow up with you. We're going to call you. We're going to make sure all your questions are answered. And so I would say, I can't speak for other law firms, but I know for our firm, there's not going to be a lot of guessing. There's not going to be a lot of wondering, what is my attorney doing? Why am I waiting so long? We're going to keep you up to date. We're going to let you know everything that we're doing as much as we possibly can. Without information overload. We're going to try to give you as much information as you can so you can stay as well informed as you want to be. If you say, hey, I don't want to know, just handle it, we're happy to accommodate you. If you say, I want to know everything you're doing, we're happy to accommodate you. So that's what I can tell you about our firm.
And what's great about, we have excellent client communication. What's great about that is this process is going to take a little bit of time. You've got to remember that this isn't going to be resolved overnight. Number one, it takes time to gather all the evidence. We've got to send out requests to police department or any sort of government agencies that may be involved in investigating. Number two, we've got to go out and get a hold of anybody else who might have evidence. Maybe there's a gas station that has surveillance cameras overlooking the intersection in our hypothetical where the crash occurred. Well, it takes time to send out a written request, for the video evidence there. It takes time for them to process it. Sometimes they'll give it to us freely. Sometimes we have to figure out other methods or ways to get it. So number one, remember this is going to take a little bit of time. Another reason why is, it's entirely dependent on your medical care. You don't want to rush your medical care. You want to get the kind of treatment your doctors feel you need when you need it. Unfortunately, that takes a little bit of time too. Just like we have restraints on what we can and can't do, doctors also have guidelines and rules they need to follow. They don't want to just jump immediately to surgery on every single patient because it's just not always warranted. they're going to want to try to do, you know, non-operative or conservative care, and that's going to take a little bit of time too. They're going to say, look, let's try some chiropractic care, try some physical therapy, try some, you know, some medications, some home exercises. All of that's going to take time. So just remember, it's going to take a while. Number two, we really don't know how much money we're going to be able to get you until closer to the end of your case. And even then, it's not always a guarantee. We've got a good idea, maybe a general expectation, but it's really difficult. Like I said before, you know, talking about the red flags, it's really difficult to tell you exactly how much you're going to get because we just don't know yet. It's all about the insurance company, the negotiations that we can do, and the type of evidence that we can use to build your case. So just remember, it's going to take some time. And there's just a little bit of uncertainty, not because we're not good at our jobs. We're wonderful at what we do. That's why the Carlson Law Firm has been able to grow into what it is, and we've been able to help so many people, is because we are good. Unfortunately, there's just a little bit of uncertainty here that we just can't tell you for sure until it gets closer to time. So just be patient with us. You know, as far as the system goes, just be open to communication. Like Ryan said, we're going to communicate and keep you updated along the way. We try not to pester people, but sometimes there's information I can only get from you. So if we're calling you and you're busy, we understand. You know, call us back whenever you can. If it's after hours, leave me a voicemail, shoot me an email. Any way you can get a hold of me or get back to me, that's fine. I mean, I understand that life happens. Everybody has things going on all the time, and that's okay. Just be willing to communicate with us. That's it. And then just remember here that we work for you and we're on your team. So our job is to give you the good and the bad news, unfortunately. Not everything is always rainbows and candy canes. Sometimes we have to get down and into the nitty gritty and be honest with you. It's not because we don't like you. It's not because we don't believe in your case. And it's not because we don't want to help you. But our job as attorneys and counselors is to let you know the good and the bad so that you can be informed and you can make the best, most informed decision you can. So, you know, be patient with us. If we could make this done or have this done overnight, we absolutely would. I mean, and remember, you know, like we were discussing earlier, you don't pay us up front since we work on the contingency fee. We have every reason in the world to resolve your case for as much as we can and as fast as possible. So just keep that in mind too. The more you get, the more we get. And it sounds a little callous and a little silly, but sometimes that's the easiest way for people to understand. I know that before I was in this industry, that was the easiest way. That's how I was taught what this was. It's like, look, your attorneys are looking out for you. I was in a car crash when I was in my teen years. And, you know, I had my parents to help guide me through, but what the attorney that I had ended up letting me know was like, look, I have your best interest in mind because, hey, man, that's how this works. I'm here to help you. So just remember, we're here to help. And sometimes that involves delivering some bad information.
Okay. Yeah. So just going basically a little recap of, you know, the process, you know, car collision happens, make sure you're safe, badly injured, call 911, and then afterwards, go to a doctor, seek care, and then after you seek care and you're safe, go search out for an attorney, get someone that's local, someone that's experienced, and someone that can help you. And throughout the process, after you hire an attorney, just stay with the communication with the attorney.
Right.
Good summary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do what your doctors tell you.
Yeah.
Follow your doctor's advice.
Yeah. So going off of that, I just wanted to throw in a quick fact for, you know, anyone listening, is that as reported by the Texas Department of Transportation in 2019, and there's been multiple years, there were no deathless days in Texas when it comes to car accidents, car collisions. So just a reminder to be safe when you're driving, wear your seatbelt, pay attention to the road and your surroundings on the road. Your phone can wait, and any other distractions can wait also. Yeah. But I wanted to sort of switch gears, and I wanted to ask, as attorney with the Carlson Law Firm, what are some of the common types of car crashes, car collisions that you have dealt with over your career?
You know, definitely rear end collisions. Somebody stopped at a stoplight or a stop sign, and the driver behind you is distracted, not paying attention, whatever happens, and they hit you from behind. Absolutely. Intersection crashes, T-bones, things like that. We get a lot of those too. Regular vehicles, 18-wheelers, work trucks, construction vehicles, you name it. We do all kinds of car crashes. What about you, Ryan?
Anything that has metals, wheels, and engines that could wreck, we've probably seen it. Anything from, and here in Texas, we're blessed to have a bunch of agricultural industry, big agricultural industry, and so we've even had some people with cows in the road where our clients have hit a cow or or hit a deer, and that's not always a case, or not, it's not always a case, but it can be, and so. Yeah, like Trey said, I mean, it runs the gamut. I mean, there's, vehicle versus pedestrian, vehicle versus animal, vehicle versus truck, train, whatever. I mean, there's not really a one size fits all for what we've dealt with here in terms of vehicle collisions.
Okay.
And a lot of what you're going to see too, especially if you're dealing with commercial vehicles, big 18-wheelers, are going to be lane changes, side swipes, knocking people into guardrails or off the roadway. I mean, those guys, it's a big truck. I mean, those trailers are huge. They're long, especially if you're driving tandem, which is 2 trailers behind a tractor, the engine compartment. Those guys, I mean, they have to drive a lot of miles. They pay attention. Hardworking guys. I mean, most of them are out there trying to just make a living and do it as safe as they can, but accidents happen. Things happen. So you see a lot of side swipes where an 18-wheeler is merging over a big, like a Greyhound bus, changing lanes, merging over, doesn't realize there's a car in a blind spot, smashed right into you. We handle a lot of those. We've got 18-wheelers or big trucks that are making wide turns. Those guys can't make very sharp right turns. You've got to go out and make a wide turn, and sometimes they don't make them tight enough, and they can hit you when they're making a turn. Kind of like our hypothetical stop signs. People running stop signs or red lights. I mean, we deal with a lot of those too. Police investigations, police can do a great job. Sometimes they might miss a few things, which is nothing against the police. I mean, those guys are out there every day, and they're caught up in the heat of the moment. We have the luxury of reviewing everything from the safety of our office after it's occurred, and reviewing documentation that's been gathered, where the police are out there doing what they can at the time it occurred. They're talking with people who are, their minds are racing a million miles an hour, adrenaline's pumping, and nobody knows what happened. And they're going to put the pieces together, but sometimes they miss a few things, but it's going to happen. It's just part of the game. So we deal with all kinds of car crashes. Like Ryan said, if it has an engine, we've probably dealt with it. We're even talking boats, watercraft. I've seen some of those cases come along. People getting hit by, trains or train-on-train collisions. I've seen those too. I mean, planes, hot air balloons. I've seen hot air balloon stuff too. Basically, if it moves and it can hurt somebody, you've probably seen it, and if not, we'll figure out how to work it for you. I mean, that's what we do here.
Yeah, and going off the different types of car crashes, I wanted to segue into the other main topic I want to dive into was hit and runs. Now, just based off my limited knowledge, I don't know much about the hit and runs, and I feel like they may be harder to prove, and I wanted to get some knowledge based off yours, like how hard is it to prove a hit and run? What is the process of a hit and run differ from, like, say, our hypothetical car crash?
Sure. You want to take this one, Ryan? You want me to?
Well, I'll say, and this is my perspective, but hit and run car crashes can be difficult. And that's why I would encourage anyone and everyone who's listening to please, please, please buy underinsured and uninsured motorist coverage. It's so worth it, and people don't always do the right thing. We have duties in Texas to other drivers when we're in collisions. The law requires us to stop, and if we're in a collision with someone, stop and give information and render aid if possible. So, but we know that not everybody does that. And so we need to encourage people in Texas, families in Texas, motorists in Texas, anybody that's going to be driving behind the wheel of a car, to please buy uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. That's number one. That's my soapbox. But number two, I would say hit and run cases really hinge in part, and a big part, on the police officers and the law enforcement officers who can investigate this. And that's why what we've talked about already today, which is call 911 if you've been in a wreck, is so important, because especially if you've been in a hit and run, any information that you can glean from the injury or from the incident that you can give to the law enforcement agency that's responding to your call will help them in trying to track down who hit you, because the law enforcement agency wants to find them too, because that's a crime then. Once you've left the scene without giving information or rendering aid, you've now committed a crime in Texas. So they have an interest in trying to figure out who did that. So I would say, yes, hit and run cases can be difficult. There's ways that we can help you as your attorneys. But one of the big things is to call 911, give them as much information as you can, and let them do their job, and then seek out legal counsel.
You know, something else is it's hard when you're caught up in the moment right after a car crash. It's hard to process, but gather all the information you can. Can you see a license plate? Can you see part of a license plate? What type of vehicle hit you? Was it a truck? Did it have a lift kit on it? Big tires? What color was it? You know, was it a small vehicle? 2-door, 4-door? If you can get part of a license plate and a vehicle make, model, color, something like that, that's going to help us and help the police try and figure out who did this. You know, check, depending on the type of crash, check your vehicle too. If you're driving and you're hit by a vehicle of equal size, you may have an imprint of their license plate on your car, depending on how they hit you. I mean, I've seen imprints of license plates on doors, on bumpers, on hoods, depending. Check and see. But the more information you can gather, the better. If you're in a city or a crowded place, look and see what kind of businesses are around you. Look and see what's around you. If you're in a shopping center, they probably have surveillance cameras covering the parking lot. You know, look and see. Take note of who it was. Depending on your condition and the state of your injuries after you call the police and do all that, I mean, call an attorney and let us know where the business was. We'll send a letter out and say, hey, you know, my client was in a car crash, you guys, and it was a hit and run. Do y'all have any video of this? Like Ryan said, the more information you can give the police and your attorneys, the better. Now, we can't always solve every single hit and run, unfortunately. You're in the middle of a country road, no lights, nobody around. Somebody sideswipes you, your vehicle goes in the ditch and they drive off. We're going to do what we can if what we can, and so are the police. But sometimes, no matter what we do, we just can't find the driver, and that's unfortunate. But if you have your uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage, that's going to help a little bit. But essentially, the more information you can gather, the better. And look at what's around you. If you can see the driver, try and remember details about the driver: male, female, stature, build, hair color. Were there multiple people in the vehicle? What did they appear to be doing? You know, what direction did they leave? What direction did they head off? Where did they go? Sometimes in hit and runs, I've seen the police will come out to the scene and then they'll circle the area, and you'll find the vehicle a few blocks away. I've seen cop cars, track down these guys and bring them back to the scene. But the more information you can gather, the better.
And I'll say just to finish off this topic, but that's another important reason to hire an attorney, is because we employ investigators that can really help us track down information and evidence. We have here at the Carlson Law Firm a team of experienced professional investigators, some of whom are former law enforcement officers, some of whom are former federal agents. And so our team of investigators are excellent in tracking down people and places and gathering evidence and taking photographs and getting documentation, getting information that can help us handle your case effectively.
Okay, yeah. So important things to know about hit and run, like we'll recap, make sure you have the insurance UIM. And then if a hit and run does happen, make sure to try to grab some information, whether that be license plate, vehicle, make, model, color, details of driver, and the surrounding businesses, and also call the police. Just try to don't just give up as soon as it happens. Just try to grab information and call the police to help you out. Yeah. And the last thing I wanted to ask was, personally, has there been any cases you've dealt with, whether that be hit and run or an experienced driver dealing with their first collision?
Well, the case that comes to my mind was notable in the sense that I felt like I really did some good, and I feel that way with all my clients. But this one just sticks out in my mind because I had a young man who came to me, and he is a hardworking guy. He was a local Wacoan, and he had his sister in the car with him as he was driving her. I think he was taking her from home to work, or from home to school, excuse me. And then he was going to head to work thereafter. And he's minding his own business, obeying all the traffic rules. And he comes to an intersection, stops at the intersection for his light to turn green. His light turns green, and then as he's going through the intersection, a big truck, and he's driving a mid-size SUV or small SUV, and some big truck blows through the red light and just demolishes his car. And he's a young guy, so fortunately for him, he was injured, but it wasn't life-threatening or anything like that. And his little sister was buckled in, secure in the car seat, and so she ended up being okay. But he did sustain some pretty severe injuries and had to get a lot of medical treatment. And he came to me and was asking me to help him with this case. And I took a look at it, and I kind of did some research and digging into it, and found that the insurance company wasn't wanting to offer him anything. Now, I can't remember, it's been some time, I can't remember if they were denying or if they were just offering a pittance. But it was one of those two scenarios. And what we found was that this individual who blew through the red light at the intersection and smashed into my clients was intoxicated. He had been on a bunch of illicit prescription pills. He had been drinking. This is a person who was going through an episode, and the insurance company, for whatever reason, I don't know what was going through their minds, but they didn't feel like this was a claim that they needed to pay. So we took his case, and we did have to file a lawsuit, and we were prosecuting his case all the way through getting ready for trial, when sort of closer to the trial date, I reached out to the attorney. This is after we had done depositions. Depositions are, formal interviews where you're under oath and there's a court reporter and all that good stuff. And the fella who blew through the light and smashed into my client admitted in his deposition that he was, on a scale of 1 to 10, he was a 10 in terms of being blackout intoxicated. Admitted that in his deposition. So after we got that testimonial evidence from the defendant, we were able to take a run at settling. We ended up settling that case for the policy limit. So that's just one case that sticks out in my mind of where here's an individual, a brother, a son, a coworker who's just minding his own business, trying to get to work, trying to get his little sister off to school, and could have had his life ended or severely changed for the rest of his life. And comes to me asking for help when the insurance company is not wanting to do the right thing. And because of the experience that we have here at the Carlson Law Firm and the care that we take with each client, we were able to get him the most money that we could in that particular case. It wasn't by far enough to make him whole, but because of policy limits and that thing, and the fact that he didn't have uninsured motorist coverage, we were able to get him the most money possible for that case. And it was a feeling that I will remember. And it was a scenario where he wrote me and called me and thanked me after it was over. And it's not, patting myself on the back. We have a team here that helps me and helps our clients, and it's a team effort. But it's just to say that that's an experience that I'll forever treasure, and I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to serve him in our community, and I'm thankful that I get to continue serving our community.
I mean, I got one at a younger client who was just driving down a highway. The highway happened to be in a construction zone, and the guy was in the right-hand lane, and the highway was down from 3 lanes down to 2. And it had those concrete barriers on each side of the highway, which gives you no shoulder to work with. And so my client was just driving down the roadway, and there was an 18-wheeler on his left side in the passing lane who didn't see him. And kind of like we were talking about earlier, just came right over, smashed right into my client's car. Of course, that shoves him right into the guardrail, and there's smashes into that. Huge crash. The police come out, and my client had to be rushed to the hospital. And so the police talked to the driver of the 18-wheeler. Well, the 18-wheeler driver said, hey, that guy was behind me and swerved to the right and was trying to cut me off when I was getting over, so the crash was his fault. The police bought it a little bit, not too much. To their credit, they did good. They talked to my client and got his side of the story too. Well, so he calls us because, you know, he was hurting, didn't have health insurance, didn't know what to do. And so we helped him find some doctors who would help him out, you know, and he's going through. The insurance company decided they didn't want to pay. The 18-wheeler insurance company said, look, our driver said it was y'all's fault, your client's fault. So we're not going to pay you. Sorry about that. Sue us. So we did. You know, we did. And we went through the process and we did. It's called discovery. We exchange written documentation. It's written questions where we'll send over to the other side and they'll send some to our client. And we ask you a series of questions like, hey, you know, was the crash your fault? If not, why? You know, were you using, and I asked this 18-wheeler driver in writing, you know, were you using your cell phone at the time of the crash? And he tells me, no, I wasn't. And I said, okay. And I said, were you fatigued? Were you tired when you were driving? And he says, no, I wasn't. And I said, okay. Well, we ended up having to go through the process and I subpoenaed his phone records. And I found out that, and then I also got his driver's log. See, when you're an 18-wheeler driver, there's a limit on how much you can drive each day and how long you can drive without taking a break. Well, when I got his driver's logs and I compared that with his GPS, I found out that he was lying on his driver's logs. And he had been driving way over the maximum amount of hours you're allowed to drive. Well, the other thing I did is I got his phone records, subpoenaed those, and I found out that not only was he on the phone at the time of the crash, he had been talking on the phone for 4 out of the 5 hours that he was driving since his last break. So in an 80,000-pound vehicle, in a construction zone. And the other thing we did was we got his download from his vehicle that showed he was speeding at the time of the crash. And then when we go into his deposition, he just tried to lie about all that again. And when you have all the evidence there, it doesn't look that great. So fortunately, because we have a wonderful team here at the Carlson Law Firm, and since I'm in Temple, I'm going to say especially in Temple, sorry, Ryan, we were able to gather all this evidence and prosecute this case, and we got a very favorable outcome for our client on a case that the insurance company told us, you're going to have to take us to jury because it's your client's fault. We didn't have to go to jury. The case ended up settling beforehand, but, you know, it did take a lot of time. It took several years. So that's why I say, you know, when you're working with an attorney, just remember, you have to be patient. It's just, we can't rush these things. There are just mandatory timeframes we have to abide by. And kind of like Ryan said, man, I'll never forget the look on my client's face when I told him the good news that the case was resolved and he could finally move on with his life. This stage was over. He could finally put this behind him and go on with the next stage of his life. It was awesome. And that's one of the things I live for, you know, working with this job. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Y'all were able to help both of y'all's clients out and going throughout the process. Yeah, thank you for helping them out. Yeah, that's awesome.
Sure.
And then lastly, I just wanted to, is there anything else y'all would like to add, like to the topic or anything?
Yeah, you know, if you're not sure if you need an attorney, call one. We do free consultations. We're not going to charge you to talk to you. If you're not sure whether you need one or not, give us a call and tell us what's going on. If we can't help you, chances are we know somebody who might be able to, or we can at least point you in the right direction. That's one of the things that separates us from, I mean, some of the other firms that I've interacted with and most of the other firms I've dealt with is if we can't help, we're going to try and figure out a different way to do it. If we can't represent you, we're going to still find a way to help you. I mean, we've got a lot of resources we can try and offer, and just remember it's free. If an attorney tries to charge you for a consultation, another red flag, right? But give us a call, talk to us, let us know. Let us help you through this process. I mean, hopefully you never have to give me a call. Hopefully we never talk. But if something bad happens, call me and let me help you. That's my life's work, man. That's what I've dedicated my life to is trying to help people through this. So when in doubt, give me a call and talk to me.
I would just end with saying that the Carlson Law Firm says in its advertising that we care, we can help. And that's not just a slogan. That's really what we want to do. That's really what we try to do here. We care about the people who are hurt. We care about people who are going through, and we have multiple practice areas. So we help people who are accused of crimes. We help people who are going through that need debt assistance. We have people who are injured. We have people who have been malpracticed on that need help. People whose civil liberties have been violated that need help. We have folks who are dealing with military issues that are being accused in a military tribunal that need help. We have people who are dealing with family law matters that need help, divorces, child custody issues. And it's that idea about caring and helping applies in all of our practice areas. So while Trey and I practice primarily in the injury sector, in the injury departments, I can tell you unequivocally that our attorneys and our staff and our customer service folks and our management, everybody in this firm are wonderful, caring people. And it's not just a slogan. It's something that we really, truly embody and live by and want to carry out and show to our clients each and every day.
Okay, yeah, and that's it for this episode of the Verdict, the Carlson Law Firm podcast. Be sure to check out, we'll have more episodes going on similar topics that surround the car collision, personal injury, and also if you're listening to this on any podcast platform, make sure to go ahead and rate us 5 stars. And if you're watching us on YouTube, the video version, go ahead and subscribe to the Carlson Law Firm. We also are on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. And if you want to receive our updates in Spanish, we also have a Facebook page dedicated in Spanish, Carlson Abogados. And if you want to delve deeper into the topics presented in today's episode, we'll have links to blogs in the video description on YouTube. So yeah, lastly, Carlson Law Firm, we have multiple locations in Texas also. We offer free consultations, and then you can reach us at 800-359-5690, and we take calls 24/7. So yeah, until next time, thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Trey, for joining.
Thanks, Jeff.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, until next time. Yeah.
Take care.